Hello and welcome to Passive Reconnaissance Part 3, the 8th video as part of our Red Team Fundamentals mini-series. In this video, we will be building upon what our previous two videos on passive reconnaissance covered, and the focus in this video will be based on reconnaissance techniques tailored towards users, employees, and people as a whole. More specifically, we will be taking a look at how we can gather intelligence on users who are part of an organization, analyzing their digital footprint, various registered social media accounts, and also covering breach credentials where applicable. Now, just to note, what we teach in this video, and basically what we've been teaching throughout our videos for that matter, is purely for educational purposes. Now, this video in particular is powerful in the sense that, in the wrong hands, the techniques that are discussed could potentially reveal highly sensitive information about the people and could potentially be misused. So we take no responsibility for your actions. Of course, we will be using fictional accounts to perform our enumeration, however, the basis still stands. My name is Irvin Asmus, and if you enjoyed this video and learned something from this video, please leave a like as it helps us grow. Additionally, you can join our Discord server, for which a link to I've left in the description below, to keep up to date with our content, join to chat, contribute, or leave some feedback, as that is always helpful. Now then, one of the first tools that we are going to discuss is called the Harvester. As described by the developers, the Harvester is a simple to use tool that is used during the reconnaissance stage of a red team assessment. And essentially, this tool gathers names of employees, emails, IPs, subdomains. So essentially, really, it is almost like a Swiss Army knife for OSINT operations. Now, the Harvester supports several different modules or sites. It's got Baidu, Bivigil, and most of these modules won't require an API key. That is the beauty of using the Harvester. But as we'll later see, you can enrich all the data that the Harvester gathers by supplying several API keys. So if you take a look here below, I think it's right at the bottom of the repository here, you'll see which of the modules mentioned above require API keys. So some of these modules can perform, several free queries per month or per day. But some of them will require, if you want to enrich your data as much as possible, some of them will require a subscription. Now, installing the Harvester is pretty simple. We can do so through UV, and we've installed UV actually in the video on network OSINT, I believe. So we won't install it, but should you need to, the command is there. So what we're going to do is we're going to clone the repository here. And once that's cloned, we're going to cd into it. And then we're just going to run UV sync to fetch all the dependencies that the tool needs. So once installed, we're just going to run UV run the Harvester, and if we run it, the tool should be working. Now, if we take a look at the tool's help menu, you will see all of the command line switches that the tool supports. And to list the help menu, you can just simply run the tool with the H or help switch. And you'll see here, looking through the options, we will need to specify the target domain using the D switch. And essentially, this will specify the domain for which the Harvester will enumerate through the internet and various sources. And essentially, by doing so, it will harvest the list of subdomains for that domain, the list of registered accounts for that domain, and also email addresses. And before we can actually, run the Harvester, we're also going to need to specify a single or, multiple set of sources. So if you take a look here, we've got several different sources. We've got Baidu, we've got Bivigil, Brave, and some of these sources won't require API keys. But as I said, we can provide some API keys should we need to. So using the D switch, we're going to provide a domain of example.com. And for the list of sources, I'm just going to provide Yahoo for the time being. And as you'll see, the Harvester will start performing its scraping across the internet and across the Yahoo search engine. And once it's done here, you will see a list of returned results. Now, one of the most crucial results when performing user-based reconnaissance, you've got the email section here. And as you can see, the harvester found 50 total emails. And if we, go down here a little, you'll see all of the emails that were found purely by using the Yahoo search engine. So we've got, webmaster@example.com, we've got you.example.com, and all of these, will be used as dummy data. So these aren't really usable. But, when we're using the harvester with a legitimate organization, say we were to use it with, Tesla.com, then all of those email accounts would essentially pertain to Tesla.com. So as I said before, the harvester performs other operations besides just, harvesting email accounts. In this case, we can see a list of subdomains. So we've got finance.example.com, we've got hello.example.com, and the list goes on. Now, as we've just ran the harvester, we've only used Yahoo as a search engine to essentially perform our operations, but we can also use the all value for the B switch to essentially scrape information by using all of the sources defined by the harvester. Now, when using every single source, just note that many of the sources that the harvester provides, again, will need an API key. Now, one thing to note, the harvester will load its API keys from its standard, pre-installed directory. So it's in etc, the harvester API keys.yaml. And, even though we've installed from the source, we will have to define our API keys in that location. So if we take a look here at etc, the harvester API keys.yaml, you'll see that we've already pre-added a virus total key. Now, I showed you how to create a virus total API key in the previous video. And essentially the process is, you make an account, you go into your profile, and you'll be able to access your API key there. And then once it's done, you'll put it in this keys section here. Okay, so with the API keys added, we can use the all value to enumerate through all of the sources. And we're also going to use the Q switch to suppress missing API key warnings. And the harvester will now begin harvesting further intelligence from those different sources. Now then, once the harvester's finished, looking through all of its sources, you'll see that the information that it was able to gather is significantly more. Now, if we take a look here at the output, the harvester was able to identify numerous ASNs, and it was also able to identify interesting links. And essentially, if you look here, these are all of the links that could potentially be used for, further reconnaissance efforts. And if we keep going down here, you'll see that it tried to find any LinkedIn users, but it wasn't able to. No LinkedIn links either. Then it was also able to identify several more IP addresses and then also your emails. Now, one interesting behavior is that the harvester will automatically, when you're using the all value, will begin scanning API endpoints. And as you can see here, before, or actually during the time that it started performing these API endpoint scans, we had to terminate the tool to avoid fingerprinting the target website actively. Now, I'm not sure if this is a bug or something, but keep it in mind that performing active API endpoint scanning is going to actively fingerprint the target website, and that is something that you don't really want when performing passive reconnaissance. Nonetheless, we managed to obtain a wealth of information. And, before we proceed to the next tool, we are going to take a look at how to save all of our output. Now, it is important to save your output once you're done scanning, purely because, you don't want to use up as much API keys or, your limitations. So it's always just recommended to store your output for later viewing. Now, to store output in the harvester, it is done so by using the F switch. And when it's done, when it's used, the results will be saved in an XML and JSON file. Now, for the sources, we're going to specify Yahoo and virus total here. to avoid performing that API endpoint scanning when we use the all value. And then for the output file, we're going to specify f and then give it a name of example.com.output or something like that. So you see there, as our scan finished, if we list the contents, the output will be stored in the directory from where we ran the harvester. So if we take a look at example.com.json and pass it through JQ, you'll see here that we've got all of our outputs stored in a easy to read format. Now, one of the next tools that we are going to explore is called Maigret. And Maigret is essentially a tool that collects a dossier on a person by using their username only. Now, a dossier, if you're not really aware of what that is, essentially it is a collection of information of a particular target. Now, this target can be anything from a subject to a person, and a person is going to be what we focus on. Now, in OSINT terminology, a dossier can be considered as a digital footprint of a user, and essentially what Maigret does is checks for accounts on a huge number of sites by comparing those usernames that we provide to Maigret, and essentially by mapping the usernames for those social media accounts, it returns us the results for which we can then further investigate an individual. Now, Maigret is actually a powerful fork of the OG Sherlock tool. And essentially what Sherlock does is perform the same as Maigret, but Maigret just has a little bit more added capabilities, such as more sites and even a web-based interface. Now, Maigret is very comprehensive. I mean, it supports over 3,000 sites, and we can actually view the list of them here. So if you look here, it has the capability to harvest or gather accounts from YouTube, Facebook, Baidu, Amazon, Reddit, and the list goes on. And one of the best features of Maigret, in addition to that it supports 3,000 sites, is that it does not require API keys. So essentially it can be ran straight out of the box. You can read more about its main features. It actually supports a Telegram bot for which you can use, and also you can use a web-based interface for this, for which you can start locally. But in our case, we'll focus on the command line interface to essentially perform all of our digital footprint operations. Now, there are several different ways in which you can install Maigret. You can install it via pip, or you can clone the repository. You can also install it through Docker. But what we're going to do is we are going to clone the repository, set up a Python virtual environment, and essentially operate within it. So if we just copy this git clone command here, and then using virtual env, we are going to create a Python virtual environment, and we are using the p-switch to essentially specify a custom Python version, and then we're going to give our virtual environment a name of venv. Now, if you don't know what a virtual environment is, in Python, essentially it is a container for which we can operate within with, and essentially any package that we install or any other modules that we install within it will be independent from those modules already installed on the system. So essentially it allows us to operate within a container without affecting our external Python installation and Python's modules. Now, before we can actually use a virtual environment, we are going to need to activate it. And to activate it, we simply use the source command. And the activation script is in venv, the name that we gave our virtual environment, bin and activate. So by running this command here, you'll also see that we have a nice little indicator that we are operating within our virtual environment. Okay, so now that we have a virtual environment set up, what we're going to do is we are going to use pip3 to essentially install everything and all of the dependencies for which Maigret depends on. So by using this command, you'll see that Maigret's installation will begin. Now, once it's done, you'll see a message that Maigret successfully has been built. And to confirm that we've successfully built Maigret, we're just going to run Maigret with the version switch, for which will print the tools version and other dependencies that it uses. Now, before we actually use Maigret, what we're going to do is we're quickly going to list its help menu. And as you can see here, Maigret supports numerous different options. Now, most of the options and switches are optional, but you'll see here one of the positional arguments, or the required option, is a list of one or more usernames to search by. Now, one useful switch to use is the no recursion switch. And what this will do is disable recursive searching for the data that is extracted from discovered pages. And typically this data pertains to other username accounts for which might relate to the username account we gave it. But essentially, by using no recursion, we can, focus only on the username that we provide Maigret. So we're going to use Maigret with my 0x73 unflower username, and essentially this is a username I use for several different services. So we're going to specify no recursion here. And by running this tool, you'll see that Maigret will begin extracting all of the information across several different social media platforms that it can find. So if we take a look here above, whilst it's still performing its searches, you see that it was able to extract a specific account for Docker Hub, also for Pastebin as well. And another juicy one here is GitHub. Now, once Maigret completes, you'll see that you get a short summarization of all the information that was obtained from running Maigret. And typically this will be the number of accounts returned for the specific username we gave it, any additional other accounts. So in this case, HackerForce X is our Twitter account. And then also you get some extended information here, such as the countries for which websites, that the user was found registered to belong in, and the numerous different tags that basically identify the specific categorization for the website. So there is a lot of information here. However, just note that, Maigret only used the top 500 sources for which it had defined. Now, if we take a look at its help menu again, you'll see that it features an option for which we can specify to Maigret to basically use all of the sources for scanning. So by using the A switch here, you'll see that, Maigret starts scanning over 2,000 different sources here. And whilst this might return, more results, just keep in mind that it might take a little bit more time. Now, in the summarization of the tool, we saw that previously Maigret reported several different tags for which it was able to identify. And essentially, we can use these tags to filter down our searches. So for instance, the searches for which Maigret performed identified that the websites it found the accounts registered to belong to the blog category, the education category, also the sport category, and the list goes on. So essentially, by using our own filters, or our own tags in this case, it will allow us to filter down our results with Maigret to the specific site where the user is more guaranteed to be registered, rather than searching for all the sites under the dating category, for instance. So this will make more sense as we use it. And to use a specific tag, we simply use the tag switch. Now, if we take a look at the sites again here, you'll see that every single site is appended with its own set of tags. Now, at least not that I'm aware of, Maigret doesn't actually, define its tags specifically. But, by looking at several of these tags, we can define a tag as being a specific country identifier. Other tags such as maps, apps, video, wiki, news. Another good one here is coding and sharing. But when, we do define our tags, we specify them either individually or comma separated. So for instance, we are going to specify the tags for hacking, coding, and also tech. So in this case, Maigret will use all the sites that, fall under the categories of hacking, coding and tech. So if we run this tool again, you'll notice that Maigret significantly reduces the total number of sites evaluated, but we are able to more filter down on the specific sites for which the user might be registered to. So if we take a look here again, you'll see here that we have a GitHub Libraries account here. Then also, we've got the Docker Hub account and the GitHub account. Now, although we didn't obtain, much more information, we were able to filter down our searches even further. And essentially, tags are used for that purpose. Now, one thing that we've not actually done yet is, inspect the information provided by Maigret, the account that it was able to identify. So if we just copy this GitHub link for which Maigret found, paste it in our search bar here, indeed you'll see that this is my account, my GitHub account, and all of the information here matches. So, by looking at this information here, we can find the YouTube channel of HackerForce, the Twitter account, the website, and also a private, or well, not so private, LinkedIn page. Now, one of the last things we're going to discuss here is how to essentially save all of your output. An output can be saved in numerous different formats. You've got textual output, you've got output in CSV, you've got output in HTML. And some of these supported formats or supported output formats are really useful for post-assessment reports. For instance, if you are presenting to a list of stakeholders or the organization, by using the PDF report, we can gain a more cleaner output format for which is more presentable than textual output would be. Now in our case, we're going to use HTML, so we're going to reuse the command we used here earlier, and then we're also going to specify here as defined the H switch. And when specified, we don't actually need to give it a file name. Maigret will automatically create us one. So once it's done, we'll see a folder here or directory called reports. And inside this reports directory here, we're just going to quickly use the open command. We will be able to inspect the specific report that we generated. So here, the report is in HTML format. But then you'll also get the list of accounts for which, the specific account was found for. So we've got GitHub Gist, Docker Hub here as well, GitHub. You see that, we also get a nice little image, all of the information presented in a nice table and much more. So we've got a lot of information here, so always save your output. Because it allows us to more quickly obtain the information that, we already would have known. Now, another tool we're going to take a look here is called Holehe. And essentially, this tool, what it does is check the email accounts that we give it across a set of numerous different sources and social media accounts. And, by using this tool, essentially we can fingerprint for which services or, again, social media accounts the specific email is registered to. So it's really useful. It's a little bit old now, but, still relatively maintained. And it's got a list, I believe, of 120 different sources for which it does, the enumeration of. And interestingly enough, it does so through the use of the forgotten password function and actually does not even alert the target email itself. So as this tool is based purely on Python, what we can do is clone the repository, set up a virtual environment, and then install Holehe that way. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly again, because there's been tool names for which are quite funky. I hope I've not embarrassed myself too much. So let's clone the repository here. We're also going to cd into it now, and then using the virtual env command, we are going to set up a Python virtual environment specifically for Python version 3.12. Then we're going to give it a name of venv as well. So with our virtual environment created, we are going to activate it here. And once it's activated, and this is really important, we will need to install the requests library. And the reason we are doing so is because Holehe doesn't install it automatically for us, so we must install it manually. And the way this is done is by using pip3, and then we use it with the install argument followed by the name of the specific library we are installing. And in this case, it is requests. So with that installed, what remains is simply installing all of the remaining dependencies, which can be done like so. Again, looking at the output here, we can see that it has successfully managed to install. To confirm it, we're just going to quickly run Holehe with the H switch. Perfect, everything is working. So using this tool is very simple. I mean, other than the email account, it doesn't really accept many arguments or many other command line switches. So what we're going to do is we're going to just run Holehe with the jdome@example.com account. And then once it's done here, we'll see a large output of the sources for which the tool was able to identify the email account registered to. Now, all of the identifiers, if the service was able to correctly have been identified, will be listed below. So, whenever you see a little plus icon, the email is indeed used. So Holehe managed to identify the specific email account. When it's a minus, the email is not used. When it's an X, the specific source implements rate limiting. So in these cases, you might want to use different IP addresses, and then the exclamation mark will, represent any sort of error. So if we take a look here above, the JDO account was successfully identified on the Twitter social media page, Spotify as well. We've got Eventbrite, Duolingo, so maybe JDO was learning Lithuanian or something. But then we've also got Adobe, and then we've also got Amazon. So it's pretty useful. Once we've gathered this information, then we can specifically go to those services and enumerate that specific email address even further. Maybe, by using the email, we would be able to identify a specific profile on the specific social media or service account, and then that could help us, enumerate the target user even further, and essentially collect more of a digital footprint on that user. Now, although the output there is useful, we can specifically limit the services for which are returned to the services for which Holehe managed to identify the email being used for. To do this, we can use the only used command line switch, and when this is ran, you will see here, that only the accounts for which successfully, used that email account which we gave it were identified. And in this case, we can avoid the clutter that was present before. And that is it really for Holehe. It's just really useful to identify where or what services the email is registered to. Now, one of the last tools or services we are going to explore is called breach.vip. And breach.vip is essentially a service that is similar to Have I Been Pawned, but provides a greater insight into the data or the intelligence that is returned. So if you've never used Have I Been Pawned, if you go onto their website and provide a email such as jdo.example.com, typically it will only list that email has been found in 31 or however much data breaches. In this case, we can't really see the information that was provided with that compromised data. So yeah, we can see the email address and the password, but we can't actually see the password using the service. And what breach.vip does is essentially provides us with that information, such as the clear text passwords. And interestingly, it's got over 2 terabytes of raw data consisting of 10 billion individual records. So it's very comprehensive in the data that it stores and returns. So if we take a look here, we can provide our search term, and our search term can be anything. It can be a username, it can be an email address. So in our case, we are going to use jdo@example.com, and you'll see here if we try to click search here, we are going to need to select at least one of these fields here. So in our case, we are going to select email to list the email account for which has been identified in the breaches. And then also we're going to select password here to actually list only those records for which passwords were breached. So having selected these two, we're going to click search, and you will see a lot of information here that is really useful and much more comprehensive than Have I Been Pawned would have provided. So in this case, just taking a look at NFLrush.com, this was a specific breach that breached the NFL Rush domain. And then, we can see the specific username that was used, as part of the email account that we provided. We can also see the password. Currently it is hashed. I think it's MD5 here, but then also we can see, the categories under which the, specific domain here was categorized under, and then you can select more fields here to list even the first name, the gender of the account, and more. Now it's really useful. Sometimes you might find clear text credentials such as passwords. I'm not really sure. There we go. So we can see another encrypted password. The thing is, most of these passwords, the way they are stored in the databases for when the compromises happen, these passwords are hashed to prevent attackers then dumping the databases and viewing the credentials in clear text. So typically the records will be hashed, but oftentimes you might find some clear text data. Now, in cases when we can't actually identify a password, but we have got a password hash, we can use a service called CrackStation. And essentially it provides an online tool for where we can crack these hashes. Now, if you don't know, a password hash is essentially a fixed length string of random characters created by passing a password, a plain text password, through a one-way cryptographic function, or otherwise known as a hashing algorithm. Now, there are many different, hashing algorithms available. You can see here that, CrackStation supports quite an abundant amount. But, by providing into this box the specific hash, selecting I'm not a robot and clicking crack hashes here, by using a lookup table of CrackStation, it might be able to crack the specific password. So in this case, we can see that the hash was an MD5 hash, and then the result here, it looks like a date of birth, perhaps 2004, the 4th month, the 7th date. But this result column will return the clear text value. Actually, I'm quite interested. Let's go back here and see if we can date. So it is the date of birth. So this account here used their date of birth as a password, which is not always the best idea. So there you go. By using breach.vip, we can identify a list of previous breaches on particular accounts. And then, if we don't get the plain text password, we can just pass it to CrackStation to attempt cracking it. And if unsuccessful, we can then set up our own, lookup table or, word list in which we can try and attempt to crack the password, but that falls out of the scope in this video. And that covers it for Passive Reconnaissance Part 3, where we explored various different OSINT techniques for enumerating users, employees, and individuals as a whole. Now, again, remember, all of the information that was taught here should only be used in legal circumstances. The way that you end up using this information or using the techniques and tools that we've illustrated That is dependent on you. We take no responsibility of your actions. So in the next video, we will be taking a look at another technique. In specific, we will be taking a look at Google Dorking and how we can extract sensitive files of a particular organization. And then finally, we'll wrap up on part 5, where we take a look at how to automate this entire process for faster information retrieval. It's been your host, Urban Tennis, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. It helps us out a lot, and I hope to see you in the next one.